Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Oh.
Today we're going to be talking about something that I think we can all relate to. Uh, Toxic patterns.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly, how to break free from them.
Absolutely.
We've got this really interesting self-help video as our source this time.
Okay.
It's called Break Free from Toxic Patterns. Instantly.
Instantly.
Yeah, instantly. And you know what? Some of the stuff in there is actually really eye-opening.
I bet. It's funny, isn't it, how those things we often think are just, normal
Right.
can actually be so unhealthy. It's like, you know how when you wear shoes that are just a little bit too small?
Oh, yeah.
At first you're like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But then eventually your feet are killing you.
It's same with these patterns, right?
Totally.
That's one of the things that really jumped out at me from this video
Oh, okay.
is how sneaky these patterns can be. They kind of disguise themselves as just, part of life.
Yeah, totally.
And then, bam, they're holding us back. They actually give some examples in the video.
Oh, like what?
Things like negative self-talk.
Oh, yeah.
The classic one.
Classic for a reason.
Always putting everyone else's needs before your own procrastination.
Uh-huh.
The good old procrastination. I mean, we've all been there at some point.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But what makes these patterns toxic?
That's a good question. I mean, we all have bad habits.
Right.
But a toxic pattern is different. It's when something really starts messing with your well-being
Oh, okay, I see.
and getting in the way of, living the life you want.
Right.
And the video actually talks about why these patterns form in the first place.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it all comes down to our brain's love for comfort.
Comfort.
Comfort and routine.
Yeah.
Like it loves things to be predictable.
Right.
Even if those things aren't actually good for us.
But why would our brains prefer these patterns if they're not good for us?
Well, think of it like this. Every time we do something, anything, our brain gives us a little reward.
Like what?
Chemicals, like dopamine, the feel-good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So even if what we're doing is ultimately, harmful, our brain is getting that little hit of pleasure.
Okay.
For just, sticking with the familiar. It's like wearing those too small shoes because, they're broken in.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. So it's like we're actually training our brains to crave the patterns.
Exactly.
Even the bad ones.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But the video goes even deeper than that.
Oh, okay. How so?
They talk about how past experiences, even trauma, can play a role.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like these experiences can leave a mark on us.
Right.
Shape the way we cope with things. And sometimes those coping mechanisms turn into,
Toxic patterns.
Oh, right, exactly.
So it's not just our brains being, lazy.
Right. It's more complex than that.
It's also about these, deeper emotional things that we carry with us.
Mm-hmm. Think of it like carrying a backpack. You get used to the weight, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's full of rocks, it just becomes part of how you move through the world.
Wow. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So, okay, given all this, I'm a little skeptical about this whole instant change thing.
You and me both.
Right, that the video title promises.
I mean, I'd love for it to be that simple, but come on.
Yeah, I get that they're trying to be optimistic,
Sure.
but given what they said about, brain patterns and past experiences and all that, it seems a little far-fetched, don't you think?
Oh, totally. Like real change.
Yeah.
That takes time. It takes
Yeah.
effort. Like anything worth having.
Right.
But I will say, there are definitely ways to disrupt those patterns immediately.
Oh, okay. So it's not like, poof, you're a new person.
No. It's more about, hitting the pause button
Okay.
on that autopilot mode. Making a conscious choice.
So becoming aware of the pattern.
Yeah, and choosing to do something different.
Okay, interesting. And the video actually lays out 3 main strategies for doing just that.
They do. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah. The first one is awareness and conscious interruption.
Okay, so becoming a detective of your own behavior.
Exactly.
Noticing when you're slipping into those, familiar patterns. Like the moment you start beating yourself up or
Oh, yeah.
reaching for that second or third slice of cake, that's your PowerPoint.
It's like that moment where you're like, wait a
Wait.
minute. I'm doing that thing again.
Exactly.
And once you've got that awareness, then you can choose to respond differently.
Right. Instead of just being on autopilot.
They even have this example in the video called the 5-minute rule.
The 5-minute rule for what?
For dealing with procrastination. It's basically just committing to doing the thing you've been putting off for 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes. Have you ever tried that?
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's amazing how effective that can be.
Really?
It's like you're tricking your brain.
How so?
Well, instead of thinking about the whole huge tasks, which can feel overwhelming.
Right.
You're just focusing on a tiny little chunk. 5 minutes. Anyone can do 5 minutes.
It's like your brain is saying, I don't want to, and you're like, just 5 minutes, buddy.
That's exactly it.
We can handle that.
And you know what? Often, once you get started, you end up just like keeping going. The momentum takes over.
Oh, interesting. So you've kind of like broken through that initial resistance.
Yeah, it's like getting the ball rolling. And even if you only do 5 minutes, you've still done something.
Right. It's progress.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've interrupted the pattern. What's next?
Well, the video talks about replacing it with something positive.
Oh, okay, like filling the void.
Yeah, you don't want to just stop the negative behavior.
Right.
You've got to replace it with something good, something that aligns with, your goals. It's like weeding a garden and then planting flowers.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And for dealing with those negative thoughts, they suggest using affirmations.
Affirmations, huh?
Yeah, like repeating positive phrases to yourself. Things like, I am capable, or I am worthy. I'll admit I was a bit skeptical at first.
Me too. Sounds a little woo-woo, doesn't it?
It does. Right. But they actually had some pretty interesting evidence to back it up.
They did. Okay, what kind of evidence?
Well, they were talking about how when we repeat these affirmations over and over, we're actually strengthening certain neural pathways in the brain, like creating a new groove in that record we were talking about earlier.
Oh, interesting. So you're actually changing the way your brain works.
Yeah, like rewiring those negative thought patterns.
So it's not just like, positive thinking or wishful thinking.
Right. It's actually changing your brain.
There's actual science behind it. Wow, that's cool.
Right. And they suggest making the affirmations really specific. So if you, tend to procrastinate, you might repeat, I am focused and productive.
Oh, okay, I see. So you're speaking directly to that specific challenge.
Exactly.
Instead of just, generic positive statements.
Okay, so we've got awareness, interruption, and replacement. What's the final strategy?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, it's the one a lot of us struggle with the most.
What's that?
Taking small, consistent steps.
Ah, consistency. The key to, well, pretty much everything.
Right. We all want that instant transformation. But real change, it's a process.
It's like trying to get in shape. You can't just go to the gym once.
Right.
And expect to have, 6-pack abs.
Yeah.
It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes showing up day after day.
And the video really stresses that progress is more important than perfection.
Oh, I love that.
Right. It's about those small wins, those daily choices that add up over time.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
I like that. And that brings us to the whole mindset shift piece, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
That the video talks about.
Right. They emphasize shifting from I can't to I'm learning.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Right.
It's so much more empowering.
And embracing discomfort as part of the process.
That can be tough.
Right.
We like to be comfortable.
We do. But growth happens outside of that comfort zone.
So true. And the last thing.
And most importantly, being kind to yourself along the way.
Self-compassion. The secret ingredient.
It really is. It's about recognizing that change is hard.
It is.
And celebrating those small victories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If we had a friend who was, trying to make a change, we wouldn't be constantly criticizing them. We'd be cheering them on.
Yeah.
Offering support.
So why not offer ourselves that same kindness?
Exactly.
This is all resonating with me so much. So far, we've talked about what toxic patterns are, why they develop, and some strategies for breaking free.
Yeah.
What do you think, listeners? Which of these patterns do you recognize in your own life?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And what strategy feels the most, accessible to you right now? Something you could try today.
It really is amazing how these little mindset shifts can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like you're changing the whole lens you're using to view this whole process. And, speaking of mindset, the video ends with this really powerful message.
Oh, okay.
About, the nature of this whole journey of breaking free.
Yeah, they're not saying we have to become these perfect beings.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not about being, flawlessly free from all negativity or whatever.
Oh, good, because that's impossible.
Right. It's more about, continuous growth and progress.
Yeah, it's about being okay with, the messiness of it all. The fact that personal growth is not always pretty.
It's not a straight line.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
I love that.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
Right.
It's not about reaching some finish line.
No.
It's just about showing up every day.
Yeah.
And making those, conscious choices to move in the right direction.
Absolutely. And celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yes.
Acknowledging the effort we're putting in. And recognizing how far we've come. So true. Okay, so let's just recap what we've learned so far in this deep dive.
Okay, I love a good recap.
So first, we have to recognize that these toxic patterns, they often feel totally normal.
They do. They're sneaky.
Right. And once we see them for what they are, then we can start interrupting them.
Right. Hit the pause button.
And the video gave us some strategies for doing that.
They did. Like what?
The conscious interruption.
Uh-huh.
Replacing negative actions with positive ones.
Right.
And taking those, small, consistent steps.
It's not about, overnight success.
Right.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And for those changes to really stick, we need to cultivate a mindset of self-compassion.
Oh, so important.
Embrace the fact that change is a process.
It is.
And view those setbacks as, valuable learning opportunities.
Yeah, like stumbling blocks, but they're actually stepping stones.
Okay, so I'm curious. What's really resonated with you during this exploration? Was there a specific pattern that you recognized in yourself? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, procrastination.
Yeah.
Hello, my old friend.
Yeah.
But seriously, what really struck me was, that part about the brain's reward system.
Oh, yeah. That was so fascinating, right?
It is, and how it actually contributes to the formation of these patterns. It's like, even when we know something's not good for us, our brain's like, more, please.
Right. Like, give me that dopamine hit.
Exactly. Understanding the science behind it just makes me, less hard on myself.
It does. It helps to take the self-judgment out of the equation.
Right. Like, it's not my fault, it's my brain.
Well, it's not just our brains.
Right.
It's also those deeper emotional patterns and all of that.
Right, exactly. It's complex.
It is complex. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest takeaway was just that reminder that breaking free isn't about perfection.
Oh, I love that.
It's about progress.
Progress, not perfection.
And those, small, consistent choices.
Yes.
That accumulate over time.
So true. It takes the pressure off.
It does. It allows me to be more forgiving of myself.
Oh, yeah. That's so key. Self-forgiveness.
Right. Because we all slip up.
We do.
We all have those moments where we fall back into those old patterns.
It's like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times.
Right. But you get back on.
Exactly. And each time you fall, you learn something.
You get a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that analogy of, falling 7 times, standing up 8 comes in.
I love that.
Right? It's about resilience.
Yeah. And not just standing up, but looking back and figuring out what happened.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like what tripped you up? What can you do differently next time?
Turn those stumbles into learning moments.
Exactly. So the video does a great job, I think, outlining the strategies and the mindset. But it doesn't really give us much to work with in terms of how to actually do it.
Yeah, you're right. It's all very high level.
Right.
It's like, okay, so how do I actually implement these things?
Yeah, what are some practical tools or exercises people can use?
Exactly. To start breaking free from those ingrained patterns.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, mindfulness meditation.
Mindfulness meditation.
It can be really helpful for becoming more aware of our thoughts and our feelings without judgment, which is that first step, right?
Right.
In breaking free.
It's like hitting that pause button.
Yes.
On the autopilot.
Exactly. Instead of just reacting, automatically.
Right. You're creating that space to actually observe what's happening.
Choose a different response.
And what about for people who, really struggle with that negative self-talk?
Oh, journaling can be amazing for that.
Journaling?
Yeah, just getting those thoughts out of your head and onto paper. So you can look at them more objectively.
It's like you're giving them a physical form.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, there they are.
And then you can start to, detach from them.
Exactly. And once you've identified them, you can start challenging them.
Oh, okay.
Is this thought really true? What evidence do I have to support it? Are there other ways of looking at this situation?
It's like putting those thoughts on trial.
I like that.
Right. Presenting the counter argument. Okay, so we've got mindfulness meditation and journaling. What about for procrastination? Any tips there?
Oh, yeah. Breaking down tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks can be super helpful.
Oh, okay. That echoes what the video is saying.
Right.
About taking those small, consistent steps.
It's all connected.
Right. It just feels so much less overwhelming when you're not facing this, giant task.
Exactly. And you get to experience those little wins along the way.
Oh, right. The little dopamine hits.
Exactly. You're retraining your brain.
To celebrate those small victories.
One more thing.
Oh, okay. What's that?
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay. Like seek support from others.
Yeah, whether it's a therapist, a coach, a support group, even just like a trusted friend or family member. Just having someone to talk to process things with, to hold you accountable, it can make such a difference.
Oh, it's so true. It's so much easier to navigate those like tough parts of the journey when you don't feel alone.
Right. And it's so validating to hear that, other people have gone through similar things.
It is. It gives you hope.
Right. Hope and inspiration.
That you're not, broken or something.
Exactly. And actually, the video even encourages viewers to share their experiences in the comment section.
Oh, interesting.
Which I thought was really cool.
Like create a sense of community.
Yeah, and it just shows how powerful that can be, having that support system.
It's true. Sometimes just hearing someone say, I get it, can be enough.
You're right. To give you that boost.
To keep going.
To keep going. So we've talked about the video's insights on breaking free, added some practical tips, emphasized the importance of community, but there's one thing I think is missing.
Oh, what's that?
Self-love.
Oh, self-love, yes.
Like it's the foundation.
It is.
Right.
Of this whole thing. Like we can have all the strategies in the world.
Right.
But without self-love, it's like, what are we even doing?
Exactly. How can we break free from patterns that are like rooted in self-criticism and all that if we don't love ourselves first?
It's like trying to build a house on like shaky ground.
Exactly.
So, okay, how do we cultivate that self-love? What are some like tangible things people can do?
Well, first of all, start paying attention to your inner critic. Those negative thoughts that pop up.
Oh, yeah. We all have those.
We do. But instead of, beating yourself up, try offering yourself some kindness. Like, what would you say to a friend?
Right.
If they were going through something similar.
It's like being your own best friend.
Exactly. Another thing you can do is focus on your strengths.
Oh?
Like actually make a list of all the things you're good at.
Oh, I like that.
The challenges you've overcome, the goals you've achieved. It's so easy to focus on the negative, but we forget to celebrate our wins.
It's true. We do. Okay, so pay attention to the inner critic, focus on strengths. What else?
And this is a big one. Make time for things that bring you joy.
Ooh, yes. Self-care.
Self-care. Taking care of yourself is an act of self-love.
Right. Whether it's spending time in nature or reading a good book, whatever fills you up.
Exactly. And when we feel good, we're more likely to make good choices.
Right. Like it all kind of feeds into itself.
It's a beautiful cycle. Self-love fuels positive change, and positive change reinforces self-love.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. What's your final takeaway for our listeners?
For me, it's just that reminder that, breaking free from toxic patterns, it's not about achieving some like perfect state of being. It's about embracing the journey.
The journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, self-love.
Exactly. It's about showing up for ourselves, imperfections and all.
Beautifully said. And for me, it's just recognizing that we all have these patterns.
We do.
It's part of being human, but we don't have to be defined by them.
No, we have the power to choose differently.
To break free, to create new, healthier patterns.
And, it's not always easy, but it's so worth it.
It is. Okay, so we're reaching the end of our deep dive for today, but before we go, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay, hit me.
What if, instead of focusing on breaking free from what we don't want, we shifted our attention to cultivating what we do want?
Ooh, that's interesting, like a total reframe.
Right, because what we focus on expands.
Yeah.
So if we want to create lasting change, it's not enough to just like remove the weeds. We need to plant the seeds of what we want to grow.
I love that. So like instead of asking, how do I stop procrastinating?
Right.
We ask, what do I really want to achieve?
Exactly.
And like, what's one small step I can take today?
Yes. And maybe that's cultivating more self-compassion.
Or practicing gratitude.
Nurturing our creativity.
Strengthening our connections with others.
Whatever it is for you listeners, I encourage you to explore it, nurture it, let it blossom.
Beautiful. So breaking free is not just about, getting rid of the bad stuff.
Right.
It's about embracing what truly nourishes us.
Yes. Okay, so on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that question. We'll be back next week with a deep dive into the world of lucid dreaming.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
It is. Until then, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep growing.